Hello everyone and welcome to another video with Maths with Sarah. So as you can see from the screen, today and over the next few videos, we're going to be looking at a variety of different algebra subtopics. So as you can see from the different questions here, we've got one that tackles an algebraic fraction. We've got one that looks at indices and how we can find n in this indices question. We've got some simultaneous equations. We've got chaining the subject to the formula. We've got expanding brackets. We've got solving quadratics. There's a complete mix here. All of these definitely have a little bit of a challenge in them. They're from the middle of a paper, so they're not super hard, but they're also not particularly basic questions either. We've all got a little bit of a challenge with something that makes them a little bit tricky. So today we're going to be looking at this question here, which looks at the different the powers and how we can use algebra to figure out what this missing power is. And then we're on the next few videos, we're going to go through and look at some of these other questions as well. So hopefully there's something for everyone. It should cover pretty much the whole algebra topic in these various different videos. And yeah, definitely a good range of questions here, I think. So hopefully everyone should be feeling a little bit more confident with algebra once they've gone through all these videos. So let's start by looking at this question here and finding the value of n in this question with indices. So what do we know? I always like to start, if I'm tutoring no matter or teaching in any way, I always like to start by asking the student what they know, what they can tell me about the question. So as we can see, we've got various indices. I'll be honest, this question, it doesn't look that nice. It looks a little bit, how on earth would I go about finding this value of n? And of course, as with all these questions, there are multiple different ways you can do this. And yeah, I'm going to use two different methods to do this and to find n. So let's look at the first one. So the first one is the main thing that we need to remember with these is how we deal with powers, and how if we are multiplying two terms to the power of something together, then we can just add these powers. So what we actually have here is 4 plus n. We can ignore the y's because the y is the same in all of these terms. All we're looking at is the powers. So we know that this y to the power of 4 times y to the power of n is the same as just adding this 4 plus n. We've then got that total divided by y to the power of 2. So again, if we're dividing powers, we know that that means we can subtract them. So we've got 4 plus n, and then we take away 2 for this power of 2 here. And we know that that whole thing equals minus 3. So using this combination, we can essentially, using the power of the rules of indices that we hopefully are already familiar with, when you times two powers, the same as adding the indices. When you divide by 2 powers, that's the same as subtracting the indices. So we've now left with this expression here. So we've got n, or 4 plus n minus 2, which is the same as n plus 2, and that equals minus 3. So as I said, we're just completely ignoring the y's because they're not really completely relevant in this question. So from this, we've ended up with an expression saying n plus 2 equals minus 3. We can then subtract 2 from both sides, and that will give us n equals minus 5. So this is one way of doing the answer. This is probably the simplest way of doing it because we're only adding and subtracting, so we're not doing anything too complicated. But equally, I think it does take a little bit of a jump to go from seeing these indices here and knowing that we can apply them in this way. So another way we can do it is we can just solve it as an algebraic equation. So we've got y to the power of 4 times y to the power of n over y to the power of 2, and that equals y minus 3. So if we do this as though it's a normal algebra equation, we've got y squared on the bottom here. So if we times both sides or multiply both sides by y squared, we'll end up with y to the power of 4 times y to the power of n equals y to the power of 3 minus 3 times by y to the power of 2. Now again, using the rules of indices that we know and we've looked at before, we can say that this is y minus 3 or y to the power of minus 3 times y to the power of 2. We can add those two powers and end up with y to the power of minus 1. We've now got y to the power of 4 times y to the n equals y to the power of minus 1. So we can divide both sides by y to the minus 4. So that gives y to the n equals y to the minus 1 over y to the power of 4. And then again, as we continue to use the rules of indices, we know that y, if we are dividing by a power, that's the same as subtracting the indice. So we know that y to the power of n equals y minus 1 minus 4, which if we figure that one out, we'll get minus 5, exactly the same as we got here. So nothing too complicated with that, but it definitely uses indices and uses algebra in a slightly different way to the ways that you might be useful. I thought it was a slightly different style of question and something that's a little bit different. So hopefully you found that useful. Remember, we've got a number of different questions. So if we go back to this page, we've got a number of different algebra questions that I will be tackling in the next few videos. So like and subscribe to have a look at the next few questions. Thank you for watching.